I'm Dan, and this is 10,000 Hours of Indie, a podcast exploring new music and delving deeper into what goes on in the background of the independent music industry. I'm a musician and passionate music lover, and I wanted to delve deeper into new music in the independent scene around the world. I also saw this as a chance to help artists connect and share their stories, so if there's someone you hear and you want to find out more about, every podcast has links in the show description. Get involved, help this community grow, follow on the 10,000 Hours of Indie socials, you can find all the links in the show description. And also feel free to email me about anything music related, 10,000indie@gmail.com. I'm open to any ideas and love listening to your promos. Alpha Male Tea Party are a math rock trio from Liverpool, England, consisting of Tom Peters, vocals and guitar, Ben Griffiths, bass and vocals, and Greg Chapman on drums. I first became aware... The guys are waving their arms around and putting me off, which is first band to do that. Congratulations.
Really helpful.
You're welcome.
I first became aware of them when I heard their third album, Health, in 2017, and my now 16-year-old son still recognises the riffs because it was played so often that year. The band are due to release album number 5, Reptilian Brain, on October the 3rd, so I tracked them down to have a chat about it, their music, and more. Ben and Tom from Alpha Male Tea Party, welcome to the 10,000 Hours of Indie podcast.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Delighted to be here.
So, let's start at the beginning. I've always loved the band name, as it's kind of very non-PC by modern standards. How did you settle on that?
That would probably have to be fielded by me, since Ben wasn't in the band when it was named. The true story is I was actually on the toilet when I came up with it, and I wanted something that kind of had a little bit of cheek and humour to it, because that was kind of what I understood as a person when I was 21, I think, when I started the band. So that's a while ago now. And I like the juxtaposition, because one of the things that I struggled with a little bit when I was a young adult was like recognizing that I was not really a particularly masculine person. And I found the whole kind of blokish blokes on nights out fighting each other stuff like really, really strange. And I just wanted to like lambast that in some way. And that's what it's supposed to be. It's a sort of daft juxtapositioning. And almost now, it almost feels like it sort of means a little bit more when you've got the rise of like dickheads like Andrew Tate and stuff like that, who are sort of actively promoting toxic masculinity in that way. I almost feel like it actually has a bit more impetus behind it now than even it did when we sort of started. I'm not sure everyone always views it or reads it that way. Like some people just think it's daft and that we're just boys being boys, but it did actually supposed to mean something a little bit more substantial than just a daft sentence. But and it is that anyway. Like most things that we do, they sound like daft sentences, but they actually do have some slightly below the surface level of meaning behind them, even if they sound stupid as fuck.
And as several artists have commented doing interviews for this, the best ideas come up when you're sitting on the toilet.
Yeah.
And more importantly, was it a satisfying poo?
It was. Yeah, I mean, it was simply because I came up with that band name. Now, I will qualify this by saying, like, if we were to start this band again now, the chances of it being called Alpha Male Tea Party are probably very fucking low.
How do you feel about the term math rock? I've spoken to a few bands in the genre, and it's quite a mixed feeling sort of being pigeonholed like that for some.
I guess initially it was a way of identifying yourself away from... It became a part of sort of like a sense of community. So you sort of identified yourself as math rock, and you'd get the math rock gigs, and then the math rock festival at the time, which was there was only one, and it was Arctangent. And you sort of wanted to belong to that part of that community. And then over the years, there's sort of fewer bands that I identified in that way. It became a bit of a sort of moniker of maybe bands who had that idea of being math rock, but did it was almost in like a pastiche way, and almost a sort of we're going to be weird with our time signatures for the sake of it, as opposed to any kind of musicality. And I don't know if it's gone a bit more full circle now, whereby it's an easy way of signifying that you're a bit different to just a rock band. Because I guess if you were to describe us in any other way, I'd say loosely it is a rock band. It's not metal. It might be a bit prog, but then you think of prog, you think of maybe the Canterbury scene, or you think of someone like Porcupine Tree, and we don't sound like either of those bands. So I guess math rock sort of is the best way to describe it, really.
I feel like the math rock thing probably was more relevant to us when we started as a band, because I personally was only just discovering math rock as a musical form. And I felt like when I found math rock that I'd finally found the music that actually properly meant something to me at that time. But it's like everything, like music moves in cycles, and eventually you kind of go, right, well, I'm not the sort of person that's going to just absorb this one genre of music for the rest of my life, and things kind of move away from that. And as a result of that, with our bands being around for as long as it has been, our influences and what we want to do with it has kind of changed, really. I mean, I still think we're probably still the same band that we've always been in a lot of ways, but the way we perceive what we're doing is different from what I think it was 10 years ago, for instance, and stuff like that. So I think we all feel like the math rock label is less and less relevant to what we're doing, or less an accurate description of what we are. And I think it's because that scene's changed a little bit as well. Like, it felt like, as Ben was saying, it felt like it came with a level of inclusion, because there were loads of other bands that were doing a similar stuff to what we were doing. I think that's what categorizes a lot of this as well. It's all tangential. Like, it's not, I don't think if you listen to like Hella, I don't think you'd listen to us and then be like, oh yeah, they sound like they're from the same genre. I think math rock's actually quite a big umbrella term that's basically been used because people don't want to say they're a prog band, but that's basically a sort of tertiary branch of that kind of experimentation within rock music.
I was going to say, I've always found, because I'm a huge prog fan, I've always found the link between math rock and prog very close.
Yeah, it's definitely there. It absolutely is, yeah. And I think we're now, as we're getting older, surprise, we're leaning more towards the prog side of things, I think.
Which is three lads who absolutely grew up on our dad's copy of Animals by Floyd. And we came home from a gig with a sound engineer in London a couple of years ago and sang every note to every solo on the ride home, and all looked at each other and just went like, God bless our prog dads.
Marvellous.
Now, I've got a lot of psychedelic followers who are going to say they're not a prog band.
I'm going to counter-argue that. They were a psych band, then they became a prog band.
Yeah, then Dave Gilmour joined the band.
Yeah, and there's no getting away from them. They were a prog band, and they were psychedelic, and they had elements of it, but they were very much prog.
You can't do a 17-minute song without it being prog in some way.
I mean, they're not prog in this. This is kind of the same thing, though, isn't it? Like, they're not prog in the same way that Crimson are prog, or Yes, or whatever, or even Rush. Like, those bands, Floyd, what typified Floyd was actually a simplicity, was underpinning a lot of what they were doing, and space. Whereas if you listen to a Crimson record, it's there's a lot more technicality at the base of that, especially when it comes to like messing around with time signatures and all of that kind of stuff. But it's all branches of the same or similar kind of tree, isn't it, really?
So what you're saying, Tom, is that we are the Pink Floyd of the math rock world.
We're the Pink Floyd of our generation.
The new album is Reptilian Brain. What inspired the album, the title?
Ben, this is on you, mate.
Yeah. So as part of some training I did in work, the concept of the reptilian brain came up. Now, I have since largely forgotten its definition. I've said this on another podcast. So I'm just going to run with it. And if I'm wrong, then come at my DMs. Good luck. They're locked. So I think it's to do with the sort of primal response of the brain. The reptilian brain is like the first part of the brain that develops, and then you get the different layers of the brain. Of which I don't know what those names are, but we've been scrambling around for song titles for a long time, some of which were awful, largely put on the table by myself, including simply Business, and that didn't fly. So, but that was the first one. I loved it. It was roundly rejected, I think you'll find, by yourself and Greg, but let's not air this publicly. No, so it was the first one that we'd had on our list of sort of song titles and album titles where we sort of went, Oh, that makes a bit of sense. It's not just a title for the sake of it. I mean, okay, we have some daft song titles, had some, we'll probably continue to do some. But the album titles have always meant something. There was always been a loose thematic idea behind them. And so Reptilian Brain, based on like lyrically, the dots are there, join them yourselves, essentially. You can tell I gave up on that response. You can tell the exact point where I stopped caring about my own.
Do you want me to finish your sentence for you?
Please, for God's sake.
So my understanding of the Reptilian Brain, which is what you described it to me as when you presented it as an idea, was that it's sort of tied up in the fight or flight instincts that human beings have. And it's this sort of idea that there's a part of your brain which is evolved before the rest of it, and is responsible for like violent responses and stress responses and things like that. So we realized that actually worked quite well, because a lot of the themes on the record are about conflict and are about anxiety or like positions of discomfort where you have to make a difficult decision, or there's quite a few, like a lot of the album is not very positive actually. Like most of the lyrics are about quite dark and unpleasant shit. Once we'd cycled through a few ideas, like that one just kind of stuck because it just seemed to tie all of these themes and all these ideas that we were exploring together really nicely, and that's kind of where it came from really. And it's also really nicely descriptive as well. Like I think there's some good imagery on there, and it actually sonically suits the record as well. It's got this kind of slightly reptilious feel to it in places in some way.
Tom, you know when you said I'm going to let Ben field this one?
Yeah. Should I have done that in the first place?
You should have said that bit.
It's only because you came up with the title. I thought you might want to expand on it.
You know, I say to most bands, it's easier with just one member, but sometimes it's much more funny with two.
Especially with us.
We are a trailer full of fireworks on fire sometimes when we do these kind of things, and I'm really sorry about that.
You are lucky there's not the three of us, because we would just be talking over each other, which even with any kind of basic software would be a nightmare to edit.
So you've always had some pretty weird song names, but Battle Crab, your first single from this album, is probably my favourite yet. How do you create a song and end up with the titles?
Or rather, how do we get the song from the title, which kind of, I guess we dip into both camps. With Battle Crab, musically, I think we had the tune before, but then Tom sort of put a message in our WhatsApp group about he's read a description of the Man United centre forward Rasmus Højlund as, Napoli centre forward, now Napoli, as being a battle crab. And that was one of the songs that I felt like I had something to offer in terms of like singing when we were writing lyrics. And when I thought of Battle Crab, it immediately, I didn't think of like the centre forward. I thought of that as, I've been on a night out with a battle crab. I've been on many nights out with a battle crab, and I hated every experience. And I'm going to write about the night out battle crab, essentially.
I suppose the thing to add also here is before we started singing, a lot of the song titles were just like arbitrary labels for songs. Like in some way, we'd always like be like, does that song feel like it should be called that? And that would be incredibly nebulous, like nothing that really made a great deal of sense, but we just get like a feeling that that song feels like it should be called that. And sometimes it will be based around how a song makes us feel. So a good example of that might be Ballerina off Health, which is the reason it's called Ballerina is because that song is incredibly aggressive, and we like the juxtaposition of calling it Ballerina against how ugly that song actually is. But then there's other stuff where it's like, why did we call a song I Haven't Had a Lunch Break Since Windows Vista came out? And did that song have anything to do with the title? Well, no, of course not. It didn't. So we've got a list of random shit. It might come out in a conversation. It might be a text exchange. A lot of them are things that we picked up of, like comments on things on the internet and stuff like that, funny little phrases, and we'll just add it into this list. But the funny thing is now we're adding lyrics. These previously arbitrary, daft sentences that we were coming up with are now actually informing some of the lyrical content, which is actually kind of quite interesting. A Terrible Day to Have Eyes, which is the second single off the new record, was named that again off some comment that Greg had seen somewhere, and we just thought it was a really funny sort of statement. But in the end, that title, like Ben with Battle Crab, went on to then inspire what is actually a really dark and horrible song, like in terms of the lyrical content. And actually, I've really enjoyed that about these song titles is that now they're suddenly going from being these like arbitrary monikers to actually having some real palpable meaning to them. And that's like quite fun.
Can I just, the song title Ballerina, do you know where that actually comes from, Tom?
I can't remember. Actually.
It's something you said. You were very, very hungover in the 2015 Arc Tangent on the Sunday morning. We were all about to go home. And you just turned to me and you said, I don't want to be a zip anymore. I want to be a ballerina. Yeah. And we couldn't name that whole title, but we kept Ballerina.
Ballerina, that is correct. I do remember that now. Yeah. I think that was because the zip had failed on my jacket or something, and it was wet.
That's fantastic.
Heady days.
Because after the interview finishes with most bands, they say, oh, what are your favourite tracks, having listened to it? I'm going to tell you now. It's hard for me to pick a favourite from this album because I do really like it, and I love the fact that it's another journey. Every album of yours has always taken me on a journey, and that's what I enjoy about your music. But I would say maybe either Solitary Disco Banquet, especially for the title, because I think that's brilliant, or the final track, All Become One When the Sun Comes to Earth, because I love a good long tune. I love a good long tune.
That is our longest, yeah.
That's one of the longest tunes I've ever written, that last one, I think.
I think that is the longest.
Negating the first album, because there's a couple of tunes off that first album which are needlessly long. But this one's a little bit different. Obviously, anyone listening to this podcast will not have heard that song yet.
It's a long one.
It's a long one, but it's a fun one.
Also, the other tune in question, Solidarity Disco Banquet. Solitary Disco Banquet does sound great, but Solidarity Disco Banquet is...
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
yeah,
I've written Solidarity.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it's completely fine. We'll just hold it against you forever. But a Solidarity Disco Banquet, there is a Ukrainian centre next to where we rehearse, and they were having a Eurovision party, and they called it the Solidarity Disco Banquet. And it just, those three words together sound fantastic. And it really stuck with us.
Yeah, it's like what three words? Like a geolocation or something, but like just the idea of jamming those three words together is brilliant. A disco banquet sounds fantastic.
I want to go to a disco banquet every day of the week.
It sounds great, yeah.
I was just going to say, I totally agree with you on All Become One. Like, that's one of my favourites. We had a lot of fun writing that one because actually there's something that we do in that song that we almost never do, which is we just sit on a thing and just let it grow and build. And it's not something we do a lot of. And it was kind of our little nod to Bowie at the end as well. We just kind of wanted this like cool, like jam out feel. And it just seemed to stick with us. Like normally we don't allow ourselves to do that. We normally go, we played that long enough now. Let's stop. But that one just felt right to do it. It's probably our most krautrock tune as well, isn't it? Really?
Well, it's definitely inspired by. It's a track on the second to last Bowie album. Is it The Next Day? I can't remember the track itself, but there's a real, not necessarily instrumentally or vocally or anything like that. There's a real feel to it, a real sort of almost like melancholic feel that we really tried to sort of steal and implement ourselves at the end of that tune. It
kind of reminds me a little bit of Dollar Days off Black Star as well, you know. Like that's got a similar kind of vibe, but I mean, it's not. It's a reference to rather than a let's write that song by Bowie. But you know, it's what we felt. It's like what we felt we were doing when we were playing that bit.
This is your fifth album. What do you think you've learnt musically as a band since forming in 2009, 16 years ago?
What a question. We've learned that I can't do anything unless I've had a sandwich.
That is painfully accurate.
I'll tell you what, though, it's good to know those things because otherwise the band would do fuck all.
Yeah, I've said some things I regret having not eaten something and had to apologise profusely for it. There's even a song on the album about that, hilariously enough.
On this album, yes.
Yeah, there is, yeah. What have we learned musically? Jesus Christ. I think our refinement process has got better and better over the years. So the band obviously formed in 2009. Greg joined the band in 2012. Ben joined the year after in 2013. And then we wrote Droids. So it's probably better to speak about it from when we started writing that record. If only because that's when I think we were discovering our chemistry as a unit. Like, what do we and what can we do? That album was probably the easiest album to write of all of them, I would probably say. Ben, is that fair? I remember that album being easy to write because we'd never written together before, and somehow it was just like bang, 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 loads of ideas just popping off. But I think that we hadn't refined what we were doing as much by then. So that's why that album came together a bit quicker, because we weren't scrutinizing what we were doing a little bit more. I kind of feel like on this new record, we've got a little bit of that back, in that because we've put the vocals in and we've allowed room for this additional element, the arrangements of the songs are less sectional. Like, we've got songs in the past that are just like riff, 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 riff. Whereas the songwriting on this record is a lot more, I think, and I just pulled a face to anyone looking at this, listening to this in audio rather than seeing the footage. I think the songwriting is more refined, I think, in that, we're happy to repeat things. We wouldn't allow ourselves to do that on all the records and things like that. And that's not to say that we've sold out and made a pop record, but I do think that we're less frenetic in that way.
I'd say that's fair. These are the most like songs that we've written. Could previously, I guess you could say, yeah, they were songs in name, but largely, like I said, there was lots of non-repeating sections and so on, and this is the more sort of cohesive, in my opinion. I actually think that this record, and this is going to sound very up my own proverbial here, but allow me, this is an interview about my band, so excuse me for a moment. I think that this record is a good old perfect blend of everything we've ever done. Personally, I think it's got that sort of immediacy of Droids, which is basically our first album, even though it's the second album, because it's the first time the three of us wrote, and it was like writing your first album. The first 10 tunes we wrote, bang, they went out, and we were very happy with it. Health got a bit sad, Infinity Stare got a bit moody, and there's elements of all of that. There's elements of immediacy, particular a track called All Foot No Mouth. That's very Droids era, in my opinion. However, there's definitely a refinement to it. There's definitely some moody stuff on there. There's a bit of sad stuff, but I think that it blends all of those together into one great cohesive record. Yeah.
I think the thing you said about the albums taking you on a journey is actually like a really nice thing to hear, because that's always what you want to do with a record. I think there are two different types of records. There are records that do take you on a journey, and they move you around and take you to different places and different sonic kind of tapestries. And then there are albums which are collections of songs. And I think that that's what we wanted to make sure that we're still doing with every single record, is that there is a sense of journey and there is a sense of cohesiveness, so that there's a reward to actually listening to the whole thing, is that it does pull you around in different places and stuff. And that's always been really kind of critical with the way we write and the way we put albums together, is thinking about that. And it's funny because some of our albums are like 10 solid tracks. Like, this is one of those records, it's 10 solid songs. But we've got some albums that have got like little interlude tracks on them and things like that. And for some reason, like the connective interlude stuff just didn't sort of materialize for this record, but we never really felt like it was necessary. Like, we always talk about, Ben, you've talked about the idea of having an album that's like a continuous play thing that kind of doesn't stop, and we always think, right, we should do something like that. But then at the same time, like when the songs just happen in the way that they do, because we tend to write as a unit. We'll be in a practice room together and we'll just jam and we'll try and put the songs together, and then maybe we'll try and refine things later by doing demos and stuff like that. So sometimes you can go into an album process going, this is what I want the album to be, but then ultimately you're not really in control of it, because once you start writing, the songs inform the direction themselves anyway. So sometimes an idea that you had at the start of it gets abandoned because the songs are just like, well, the songs are telling us what we need this record to be. And you can't really fight that. You just kind of have to let it happen. I think the one thing that we really, really consciously did on here was make sure that the vocals were going to happen. And it's funny, we started recording the album, we didn't have a single bit of vocal written apart from like one song, I think, was probably just Hungry. But we knew they were going to happen. And I think we're both really, well, all of us are really happy with how that process actually ended up working, because it was a bit scary. It was like, we know we're going to do this, but we've no idea what shape it's going to take and how it's going to be. And making sure that these songs, there was room for that to happen was really important. And it did work, I think.
So I'm known for being a bit of a social media stalker for the artists I speak with in preparation for interviews.
Yeah.
Instagram and Facebook seem to be there's nothing bad on you guys. It's all right. Instagram and Facebook seem to be your favoured places to share news and info with fans, from what I can see.
Yeah.
You have the band Every Hell supporting you, but only in cities beginning with B, was one
Correct.
of the posts I noticed.
Yes. I don't know what, that's not on purpose, but I just thought it was a funny coincidence. So I thought, oh, fuck it, I'm going to make a joke about that just to undermine them. Yeah, great boys. So Mark, drummer at Every Hell, produced the record with us. That's another big thing about this record, is I didn't produce it for the first time, and that was a deliberate choice because I wanted to just sit back and play my guitar and just experience what it's like. So it just kind of felt right when we were putting the tour together. We should take Every Hell on a few shows, and they just turned out to be the ones that they could do. So Bristol, Birmingham, Brighton, brilliant.
You also had a very cool T-shirt printed up for Arctangent this year. The designer, Sam, appears to be a tattoo artist generally. So how did that come about?
I got tattooed by her as a birthday present from my wonderful partner. I'm going to show this for the audio listeners, obviously. It's an eyeball. That's not a great angle, is it? Everyone's tilting their heads. It's an eyeball in a candle that's like a birthday thing. Anyway, I really liked her work, and we've used some brilliant artists for our t-shirts in the past, and the previous ones we used the Ace Max Amos for, who's also a tattoo artist, who's also done many of the tattoos that I have on my body that I'm showing the microphone. And his were more sort of like really fine detail, sort of grayscale monogram. Anyway, but they were just sort of, and for this one I thought, quite like one that's quite sort of vibrant and colourful. And the colours that Sam uses in the tattoos really sort of jumped out at me. But yeah, it's a nice old colourful one. And we did it for Arctangent. And I also thought, there's going to be a sea of black and white t-shirts. Let's have one with a bit of pink in.
We went down the party cannon route, didn't we, basically? Do you remember that? Do you remember the festival lineup that was all just like death metal bands? And then there's the band Party Cannon with their like Toys R Us style multicolored logo, and it was really, really good.
They are a brutal band to listen to.
They're disgusting. They're absolutely horrific. I tried to listen to them the other day and was like, nope.
It's an excellent logo that really makes them stand out amongst these sort of piles of twigs logos that you tend to see on those lineups.
As we touched on already, you've announced a tour in October to support this release. Any chance of you trekking out to Europe next year for some shows?
I mean, we'd absolutely love to. Logistically, being in Europe is a bit tricky. There are a few other things next year that might make a full-blown European tour a little bit tricky, but that's not to say it's impossible. We will eventually be back on the continent because some of our favourite shows have been on the continent. In particular, the Czechia seemed to really bounce a bit, which is great because it's absolutely miles away. It's not a short trek, but it is very much worth it.
I think we definitely want to get back. Whether it will be next year, not 100% sure. If it is, it will be later in the year.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've not been since 2018. Something happened between 2018 and now. A number of things actually that made going to Europe as a band much, much harder. But
there's another B word in there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is another B word. And we'd also love to go to Finland. We've not been that far north before, actually. Whereas I think Germany's the furthest north.
Holland,
yeah.
Holland, the Netherlands. When we played Prague and Pilsen the last time, though, two fellas flew from Helsinki.
That's true.
To watch both of those nights.
We must talk about Arctangent with you guys, as you seem to be regulars, and every band I've spoken to, roughly in your genre, says it is one of the best festivals in the world. What makes it so special for you guys?
Because it's the only fucking festival that we can play at where we'll get that reaction. It's a special place, and we're very, very privileged to have that as a band as well. Like, there's very few bands that get to go through life and actually feel at home at a festival of that size, and that's something that's really special, and we're really lucky to have it and to actually be kind of stitched into the history of that festival as well. Like, you know, we've played 7 times now and played in various different guises as well. Had some involvement with the festival in some capacity at almost every single one of them, and it's just been brilliant. It's been amazing to watch it grow. It's not the same festival it was 10 years ago, but it is a better festival now for it. And To be honest, it's sort of, you almost had like pre-COVID Art Tangent and post-COVID Art Tangent, and it felt like when it came back after Art Tangent, it was a bigger, different beast. It's still an amazing festival, but that's more like cottagey feel that it had when it first started, where we met like some of our best friends for the first time. It was different, and it took some time to adjust to it. But now it's like, oh no, it's amazing to see that this festival can be big and it can be successful and it can work, and you can still feel at home there doing the sort of stuff that we do, and that's amazing. Like it's our home basically, musically and socially as well. It's, you know, so go to it if you've never been to it.
And the final question: what music are you listening to at the moment that people listening to this podcast may not be aware of and should check out?
Silence.
Absolute silence. I mean, I have been hammering the new Hayley Williams record, who, you know, relatively unknown singer from a tiny band called Paramore. So, you know, I'm sure that'll, I'm sure she'll do well. Yeah. Sure she'll do well. No, her new record's great. I really like the most recent record by Eyes, Danish hardcore band who played Art Tangent, but annoyingly, they played Art Tangent when we were setting up, so I couldn't watch them. But that album is wicked. It's got a Ken mode on it and is just really deliciously heavy. I've been listening to a lot of, I don't know if you've heard of Black Sabbath.
No, just new bands.
New band.
Brighton, wasn't it? Birmingham.
Yeah, they're another beat.
One of the bees, yeah.
Yeah, one of the bees. I'm trying to get into the mode of going to the gym quite regularly, and I've got a gym playlist that Tom would largely ridicule me for, because it is just the most straight down the middle hardcore kind of macho hardcore, you know, like China Cymbals, Breakdown, and there's some good stuff on that, but you'd all hate it, so I'm just going to keep myself to myself.
New Deftones record that's just come out.
That's great. Another small band there, Tom.
I didn't get it on first listen. I'm going to give it another go, but I felt it was a bit wishy-washy in places.
Yeah, I don't disagree, actually. I'm a bit funny about Rich Costey, and he mixed it, and it sounds weird to me. Like, it sounds a bit weird.
It's just not got that thing that the Deftones do, where it really gets you in your gut. I just didn't feel it first listen.
I feel sacrilegious to say it, but I kind of feel like Deftones are recycling themselves. I gave it a full listen, and by the end of it, it won me over, and I really liked it. But the first tune, I was like, oh, this is Deftones. And that's cool. You know, they definitely have a thing. But it did grow, and it did develop, and I was like, okay, I am here now, and I'm in it. But it took some persuading. A friend of mine introduced me to a band called Downward, which I really liked, and that was like a sort of heavy Midwest emo band, which is not normally my fodder, but I really liked it, and the production was beautiful on it, like lovely drum sound. I mentioned Snooze, their new record came out a few months ago. That's great. And that's one of those records that I was like, yes, this is an album that makes me feel something, which I got to be truthful, doesn't happen a lot for me these days. Like, I put a record on and I'll go, oh yeah, okay. Whereas that just made me go, this is really interesting, this is really weird, but like, it's still songs, and that's ace. I enjoyed it a lot. Great band.
The Callistyle Boys, that's another record that I really like. The new Callistyle Boys one. They've absolutely leveled up, and it's absolutely brilliant. I'd like to go and see them when they tour with Knives. I think it's next year. I would like to go to that, Tom.
Yeah, okay. I need to give that a shot. I think I've heard a lot of people talk about that band, and I've just not done it. So
there's a really great track which has the word dog in the title. I can't remember the exact name of it, where the singer does a sort of dog bark just before a breakdown, and it's absolutely brilliant. Greg isn't here, but Greg would say Mauro Pavlovsky, formerly of Deus, has some new stuff out, and it sounds very disco. And I like it too. It sounds a bit Peter Gabriel.
That's plenty to keep people going, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for anyone wishing to find out more, you have a website, alphamaleteaparty.co.uk, and you regularly post on Instagram and Facebook. And are there more I haven't spotted?
We usually just cross-post onto Threads. We don't use Twitter anymore because fuck that. We technically have a TikTok, but I immediately got bored of it. So I don't know how much longer we'll use that for. So Instagram, probably the main one.
I would also say if you are a bit of a fan of ours, buy something off our Bandcamp and then or download it for nothing, as quite a few people do, which is completely fine because a lot of our stuff is pay what you want. The most immediate way to get what we're doing is directly through Bandcamp, because we message kind of almost first. It sort of goes there because that's very direct, and we don't have to fanny about with algorithms and putting the right hashtags and tagging people in. It's just straight into your eyeballs, lads.
I will add you to the list of bands that are definitely pro Bandcamp then, because it's been a big topic of conversation with a lot of the artists I've spoken to, and being able to have that communication directly with the fans as well.
Yeah, it's a great platform. It's one of the ones that actually seems to not have been totally corrupted by the general cesspit of the internet, to be honest. It's pretty good.
Reptilian Brain by Alpha Male Tea Party is due for release on the 3rd of October on Big Scary Monsters and across probably all streaming platforms. Even Spotify.
The evil Spotify.
Evil.
Which is where this podcast appears first.
Yeah.
So, thanks, guys. It was a pleasure to chat with you. I'm going to have a hell of an editing job, but it was wonderful.
Sorry, Daniel.
You're welcome.
I hope the album is huge, because it is a really, really great album.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you very much.
Appreciated.